Well, aloha. We are on Oahu, and I have a special guest here today. What's been kind of fun over the last couple episodes, we've really been talking about the importance of the brain and the different things that we can do to be able to facilitate the brain, helping it out. If you go back on a couple of the episodes, we've even talked about games, your brain on games, and then we talked about your brain on sleep. I'm totally thrilled about this episode because this is one that's near and dear to my heart. But this is a woman that has really done much to inspire us to be able to really look at our nutrition, the way we eat, and the things that we can do to really bring health, not only to our body, but to our brain. And where we really are focusing on the brain right now, there could be no better time than for me to be in Hawaii on a retreat with a private chef that has so much information for us, but more importantly, her expertise is awe-inspiring. This is Indigo Mathewson. She has the Indie Kitchen, and give them your website right now.
It's Indie Cook Club, so INDYYCOOK cookclub.com.
Definitely go check this out, because how I met Indigo was on a retreat, and I think this is the third one I've been on now. We're a little bit addicted by having this level of expertise and food. Oh my goodness. So she comes to us as a private chef, but she has years and years of experience. But this isn't just the multiple restaurants where she got her experience or the education, etc. She continues to learn and source, and not only are we eating nutritional foods, but she's educating us too on our body, how it affects us, how it even affects our emotions, etc. So I'm excited for you to be treated, and it's an honor to have Indy on the show today. And so she's going to give us a lot of information on what we need to know about bringing nutrition to the brain. So fill us in a little bit also on your background so that they understand that there's such a breadth of experience that you have.
Yeah, so I have over 10 years of experience cooking professionally, but I did go to school for nutrition. I got an undergrad degree in nutrition and culinary from Bastyr University. And I kind of melded that together with my experience working in restaurants, catering companies, farmers markets, like pretty much all of like the food industry facets. So I melded those together, created my business, and basically what inspires me is the connection that food brings with people, and the mindfulness, and of course the nutrition and the whole experience of it.
Well, and what I will add too is your presentation is above and beyond.
Thank you.
There's a beauty and an art to how she presents the food. And then when you taste it, it's healthy, nutritious food that looks good. It really is an experience, is how I would say.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, I love that.
well, we wanted to talk a little bit about, is there a connection between the gut and the brain?
Absolutely. A lot of people refer to the gut as our second brain. And, there's so many different things you can do to help your gut, but ultimately we're absorbing all of our nutrients through the gut. And so I would highly suggest like getting those fermented foods in, like sauerkraut, kimchi, even just apple cider vinegar, yogurt, anything you can do. A little bit of fermented foods every day is awesome. Also, fiber is very important for everyone. It works like a broom through our colon. So like just sweeping out all of that gunk that from just like every day, if we go and eat a little bit of processed foods, it's okay. But you just want to balance that out with a lot of fiber, fermented foods, and nutrient dense foods as well to sweep out all that gunk.
So why is the gut so critical? Why does that affect the brain so much?
Well, we have so many nerve endings in there, and our nerve endings like go through all of our vital organs, our heart, our liver, everything, our lungs, and goes up to our brain. So we need that to absorb all of those nutrients to get to our vital organs so we can function properly.
I've heard the saying, if your gut ain't happy, your brain ain't happy.
Yep, totally.
So it's interesting that it all starts in the gut.
Yes.
And really the absorption, etc., is all gut related.
Mm-hmm.
So we really do need to pay a better attention to the health and the vitality of our gut. You had talked about getting fiber. What are some ways that we can bring fiber into our diet?
I always push just diversity in your diet. If you can just get any type of veggies that you can get in, whether it's frozen vegetables, fresh vegetables, even canned, any type of vegetables. If you're just getting it in, that's great. And then, of course, I think of whole grains and things like flax and chia, great seeds like that. They have a lot of fiber because they have that husk on the outside of them that just goes right through us and pulls all that gunk out. So things like oats, whole wheat, barley, even gluten-free grains, brown rice, sorghum are great. I always suggest psyllium husk. We were kind of talking about that.
Yeah, tell them
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah,
Like
so
that.
a lot of people, especially like when we get older, you'll see people buying from the stores like Metamucil and whatnot. That's just psyllium husk. And I'm not sure exactly what plant that comes from, but it's just pure fiber. It's the bran from the plant itself. And that is just a great way to sweep all that out. It's just proven. We've always been using it for years. That psyllium husk.
That's interesting. I didn't even think I had to do a little sweep of the intestine.
Yes. Yeah, we got to clean our house, got to clean ourselves.
But yet I've noticed that when you make things that you do this beautiful balance between the nutrition and the fiber and the things. I mean, there are a lot of things that you do that we don't actually recognize. And maybe you'll tell us a little bit about the theory behind when you create dishes. And I think all your clients are different. By the way, I'm going to kind of brag on her a little bit. This is a woman that is requested by Hollywood stars, movie stars, international people to come on their yachts and travel with them. And this is not just someone who knows how to cook. This is someone incredibly intentional, sought after. But there's still room for you if you're wanting an amazing chef. And you'll see why she's so requested. But so what is your thought process? I know for us, we are so excited that you will come and that we can eat from your table because of the healthiness and the nutrition. We're all about the vibrancy of the food. In fact, tell them what you develop for us. What do you do for us every day? What theme do you have for us running?
Yes. So we've developed a theme over the past 3 retreats that we've done together, and we love doing chakra themed menus. It's just a really great mindfulness practice. And mindfulness is so important, just not in everyday life, but while you're eating as well. So you can properly digest everything and absorb all those nutrients. So every day we have a theme. The first day we start with the root chakra, and then we work all the way up to the crown chakra. And today we're focused on the heart. And yesterday we did the solar plexus. Like for example, because the solar plexus is attributed to the color yellow. So I did some golden milk muffins, and of course with turmeric, to absorb it properly, you want to get a little bit of black pepper and a fat. However, I think that black pepper doesn't go well in muffins.
Gratefully you didn't put that.
Yes. So on the side, I made just like a veggie scramble with some eggs and some yellow bell peppers, kale, and then I put black pepper in that. So overall, I think while I'm creating a dish or even just a meal for someone, to have little elements in there that complement each other so we can properly absorb all those nutrients.
That's what I thought was so fascinating, because you're looking at how can we assimilate the nutrition that you're preparing. So I thought that was brilliant that you had thought about a different one, had the black pepper in it, and then we had a little bit of the sweetness of the muffin too that had the turmeric. It is really fascinating. There's a lot of science that goes into what you're doing, and art and nutrition also. So it's been kind of fun. So yeah, every day she's been doing a different chakra for us, and then she uses fruits and vegetables and foods that are within that color. Now it's not monochromatic because she adds a lot of the rainbow in there, but the main pieces are the color for that day. And it's fun. At the end of our retreats, I feel like our chakras have been treated to an epicurious treat. You do feel balanced. You feel very different when you eat differently. You feel differently.
Exactly. And I think it's so important to just have fun with your food. You know, like a lot of us are just so busy in our day-to-day lives, and it's hard to just get a meal in. Sometimes we scarf down a protein bar in between meetings, but if you can and if you have the time, themes are so fun. I honestly do it for myself.
Do you really?
Number one, yeah, because I love like researching like a certain culture and all of their flavors, or going with a theme like the chakra and whatnot and learning about that, because there's so much to talk about, not just the food, but what its theme is.
Yeah, it's been amazing. these these last 3 retreats. In fact, one of this retreat, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to come, and I was like, I'm going to miss the food. I have to be there because it does make a difference when you have gone a certain amount of time eating those foods that are clean.
Yeah.
You come back incentivized to be able to make some big changes in your life. I know for you, you eat well and you eat diverse, as you said, and I think that's what makes you such an amazing cook. But how do we tiptoe into eating more healthy? What are some ideas, some simple ways that we can start eating more healthy?
Yeah,
Where do we start?
totally. I think number one, especially since we're in Hawaii, here we are right now. If you can support your local economy, Hawaii is so different just because we rely on so many shipments, but even in just whatever state or country you're in, it's so important to just support the people around you and your community. So I would suggest number one, buying local. And then while you're cooking, look up something, like I was saying, like look up something fun, like a theme or like a different recipe. Just get inspired by something so that you're putting some good mood and funness into the food. Some simple ways to just add some good flavor and nutrients to food. I always love using citrus and things, some lemon or even like orange, lime. I love zesting lemon and lime in dishes because it just adds such a wonderful flavor to it without overpowering with that sourness. Obviously, there's lots of nutrients in these fruits with vitamin C and, of course, a very cleansing property to it. I love using fresh herbs too. If you can get your hands on some fresh herbs or even start a small herb garden for yourself, that would just be awesome because it really adds like a nice bright freshness to food. And I think it makes it come alive. So those are just some simple ways to just kind of brighten up any dish. Like even if you're throwing together like keep reheating some frozen vegetables or whatever, just squeeze a little lemon with olive oil and some fresh herbs in there and it really elevates it.
Well, and I think that's what it is. It's experimenting with even spices.
Yes.
Because sometimes eating more healthy, people think, oh, it's more bland or whatever. And I know that the closer you eat to Mother Nature, the more life it is in it, the more alive we are.
Yes.
And the more dead things that we eat. I think I was telling you, we were kind of laughing about it. I have a friend that said the sure way for you to know what a processed food is, it's already packaged in its coffin. So it's already in a little plastic bag. So if you're eating Twinkies and different things like that, you're eating dead food, and therefore it brings death, or it brings dis-ease or maladies into our life. So the fresher we can, I know fresh foods, but I love how you combine the cooked with the uncooked. Yes. But your blend of spices is what really brings things to life, because she made a curry the other night that was I think we were all licking our bowls with our mouth. It was that delicious.
It's so interesting. So many spices have so many medicinal properties to them. Like, for example, like I think of just a simple spice like cinnamon. There's so many anti-inflammatory properties to it, and even helps our bodies with blood sugar balance. Like just little things like that. And I was touching on the turmeric and such an anti-inflammatory spice, but I love like those ancient cultures. Like I think about Ayurveda and India and how many spices they use in their food, and they use them medicinally, and they've been doing things like golden milk for thousands of years. They automatically put turmeric with black pepper and some kind of fat in their curries already, and they already knew that we're absorbing all those nutrients that way.
No, it really is nice to be able to expand our taste buds to be able to include other cultures.
Yes.
So besides like the cinnamon and turmeric, what are some other really good spices that you would suggest that people try to incorporate into their diet?
Yeah, I always suggest for people to try to find like some sort of like Indian store or like an African store, or they have so many great spices in bulk, and a lot of them like you can go in there and just stare at the wall. There's a lot that you've never even heard of, but I learned recently about fenugreek. It's an Indian spice, and it's actually a seed, but a lot of pregnant women use it as a supplement to help with pregnancy and just getting like it's in a lot of blended supplements with things. And even I think of like fennel seed.
Oh yeah,
that's really good for digestion. It has it has that like bitter aspect to it that helps us release the bile to digest things properly. There's so many different spices out there. And if you can like find some sort of like ethnic store, like just go and check it out. You don't even have to buy anything. Like just go and kind of look at stuff and see if something sparks your interest. And then I would just suggest Googling it and trying to find a recipe and learn something new.
I know I was in Israel years ago and we went to the markets and they had spices everywhere in baskets of different things. And then you could buy them by the
That's my
gram.
dream.
And it was overwhelming to know
Yeah.
and I remember I brought back like 5 or 6 different blends of things. And then it was trying to figure out, well, what do I do with it? I needed the recipe of, what do you use this in? Is it used in a bread, in a naan? Is it used in, in a soup, or on top of fish? But sensory delight.
It's so interesting because like a lot of cultures have these very pungent spices, and really the sole purpose of it was because they're antibacterial, antiviral,
Oh, wow.
and they didn't have like refrigeration or like ways to like store food properly. So they would season foods like this to get rid of any of those antibacterial or the bacteria.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Like if you go to Mexico and you see in the meat markets, like everything's covered in that like red marinade.
Yeah.
It's annatto seed, and that's naturally antiviral and antibacterial. And that was like the sole purpose of it.
Ingenious.
Yes.
We can learn so much. Well, what happens if we aren't getting that good nutrition? What is the effect on our brain?
I could talk forever about this. So I have a few nutrients I want to touch on, specifically about brain health and the effects of them. So first, I want to touch on B vitamins, and I think of B vitamins for the brain.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
I can remember that.
So for example, folate, B12, and B6. These ones are vital for homocysteine metabolism, and elevated homocysteine increases your risk of dementia. There's a lot of research on all of these nutrients here that I'm about to touch on. Homocysteine, I could talk forever about this, but this is a hormone in our bodies that is vital for not only our brain health, but our glucose metabolism. And if you think about it, like when you get really hangry and you're not eating enough, you kind of have like a brain fog. Or even if you like eat too much or like get like a sugar overload, you're kind of like, whoa, you get a little bit of a sugar hangover. And homocysteine, it plays a very vital role in this. And the B vitamins I touched on, folate, B12, B6, they really help on this.
Can you tell us what foods would have that?
Yeah.
How can we get that naturally?
Totally. So there's eggs, number one. I always promote eggs. They're awesome. So many nutrients in there. Meats have them, fish, of course. And then if you're plant-based, you can get some nutritional yeast. It is fortified, so you don't really absorb all of it, but it is a really great source of B12. Another one I want to touch on is vitamin E. It's a neuroprotective, so it protects our nerve cells against damage and degeneration. A great source of this is almonds and nuts. You're gonna hear a lot of these suggestions of foods, and they're just really like hearty foods that you can think of. Another one I want to touch on is zinc. It helps for the proper function of GABA, and GABA is just a major role in preventing anxiety. So when our GABA is off, sometimes we can just get anxiety from that, and then you end up spiraling and you get really stressed out, and this is not good for anyone. Like stress, cortisol in the body is inflammation and disease. Magnesium, of course. Magnesium is really also important in preventing anxiety, and it helps us stay calm. And some of the sources of zinc and magnesium. So zinc is really like the highest source of zinc that you could eat is oysters, believe it or not. But it is in a lot of other meats as well. Magnesium, meats, of course, but then also avocados and even chocolate.
So I like that one.
Yeah. So sometimes like I've heard when I was going to school, like they talk about how people get really intense chocolate cravings. And sometimes it's because you have a magnesium deficiency.
Really?
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Sometimes our body knows what we need.
Well, I think our bodies are very intuitive, but it's whether we know how to respond to it. And if we've eaten so poorly for so long, sometimes our body is craving, that microbiome, as we go back to the gut,
Mhm.
it's craving the wrong things.
Yeah.
It's crying for more sugar or whatever. And of course,
Yeah,
those are the biome that create the cancers in our body.
exactly. And sometimes our levels are off in our brain and we're just looking for that quick fix of dopamine, and we sometimes will have to just reach for something at a convenience store or something, but it really only helps with that quick fix. In the long term, you want to get to the holistic approach of these things so you're preventing wanting to have that quick fix. Another one I want to talk about is vitamin D, and this one is really interesting. There's a direct correlation with Alzheimer's and dementia prevention. A lot of studies about this. Some really good sources, of course, are salmon is an awesome source. Roseanne and I were kind of talking about different like plant-based sources of this. So you can eat mushrooms, however, it's not the full vitamin D source that we need. It's vitamin D2 versus we need D3. So you can eat mushrooms, of course, that doesn't hurt you at all, but I definitely suggest buying in the store. You'll see white mushrooms and brown mushrooms. Go for the brown mushrooms because they've been exposed to sunlight and it activates that vitamin D in there. The white mushrooms, however, they have very minimal levels, and even then it's not really worth it. But if they're kind of similar in price, definitely go for the brown ones. If you do buy the white ones, just put them out in the sunlight if you can. Mushrooms are really interesting. I want to say creatures, not plants, but they can absorb sunlight directly, even though they've already been plucked and they're just store-bought mushrooms. So if you do have the white mushrooms or any mushrooms, honestly, just put them out in the sunlight. And we're the same way, like try to get some sunlight as well. It's like the most bioavailable way to get vitamin D.
I'll never look at white creminis the same way.
Yeah. And then the last one I want to talk about is iron. And this one is really interesting too. So I don't know if you folks have heard of maternal anemia, but it's basically when a woman is pregnant, sometimes this can provoke anemia, even though they're not prone to it, or even if their diet is on point. And then this pregnancy provoked anemia can directly affect the child. And it's very unfortunate, especially in like lower income populations and whatnot that don't have access to healthcare to catch this early on, because when the child is born, there's a lot of studies about this and how they're way more prone to mental illness and eventually Alzheimer's as well. So iron plays a big role in brain health. And
that's interesting because, we're familiar with fetal alcohol, using like substances that abuse the child.
Right.
They're good for us anyway. But this is just lacking iron.
Yeah, and actually using substances while you're pregnant can provoke deficiencies like this. So it can be almost like a cascade effect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's so vital just in those early stages to get like proper nutrients.
And we know that the nutrition or science is now proving that nutrition of the mother is passed on to the DNA of the fetus. Even their emotions now, they have passed out that say the emotions that a mother feels is actually coded in the DNA strand of the child.
And even like generations.
Yeah. So really our mental health and our physical health is so critical.
Some honorable mentions for nutrients that I want to touch on. Curcumin, we were talking a little bit about turmeric. That is the constituent in turmeric. It's a major anti-inflammatory promoter in our bodies, and overall it just helps with circulation. So getting a lot of blood flow to the brain. You don't want any inflammation in your brain, because that is not good. You just want to have a properly circulating nutrients in your body. Omega-3 fatty acids are awesome. They just basically lubricate our cells, our joints, help with circulation as well. And you'll hear me talking about circulation a lot, but it's really just getting all those nutrients and the blood flow to the brain. And then of course we kind of talked about eating a colorful diet. That's number one right there. If you can get a diverse diet, like just trying different vegetables every day or multiple vegetables in different meals, or even different whole grains, just switching it up is awesome, because you can pull nutrients from all these different sources, and then you have more just there's more chance that you can absorb these nutrients this way rather than just focusing on one food every day. Your body gets kind of used to it in that sense.
Yeah, I have a good friend who has always taught her children eat the rainbow,
Yes.
and that her plates are very colorful. And she uses a lot of the spices that you were talking about.
Mhm.
And now that I understand that they have more of an medicinal purpose, not only the taste, but medicinal. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So for those of you who don't know what golden milk is, I was introduced maybe about 8 years ago to it. Such a treat and such a delight. And of course, we had golden milk the other day.
Yes.
So do you want to tell them how they could make golden milk so they could get some of that turmeric, that good stuff in?
Absolutely. So you want to pick any sort of milk that you normally use. You can use regular cow's milk if that's what you have. I always go for coconut milk just because it has that healthy fat in there. You can also do almond milk or whatever you have on hand or whatever you like. And then if you have turmeric powder, just a little pinch of that. Here in Hawaii, we actually grow turmeric. So I use fresh turmeric and blend it up all together. Then I also put ginger. Turmeric and ginger both have a really great effect on anti-inflammatory properties and then also help with digestion as well. So it's that turmeric, ginger, a little bit of cinnamon, black pepper, and then whatever sweetener of choice. I always use honey or coconut sugar.
And it's delicious. And it's served warm. Right?
Yes, yeah, it's very calming. This is a great evening drink, like right before you go to sleep. I've heard people say they have really great dreams when they drink this.
No, it is a delight, and it is like a treat. And we won't maybe go into the recipe, but she does a hot chocolate for us that super healthy too. And we're clamoring for that all the time. It's yeah, you're gonna have to hire her to find out that secret. But what are some invitations that you could give to the listening audience here on if we're stepping into leveling up our nutrition and really concentrating on giving our brain what it needs? What's maybe an invitation you can have them do over the next 2 weeks? And we've probably maybe talked about it, but I think it's good now to wind down with, okay, this is what you can do now.
Totally. If you in your town have a farmer's market, I'd really suggest going to check it out. A lot of farms will do something called a CSA box or a bag, and you pay weekly. It's usually around $30 or so, and you get a bag of just random vegetables. Sounds a little intimidating to someone who doesn't normally cook, but I think it's a great way to like just educate yourself on what's out there, what's growing in your town, and just to try something new. That's what I always suggest for people. And it also kind of gives you the obligation because sometimes they're like a membership.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I gotta go pick up that CSA box, but then you're gonna eat great for that week. That's just something very simple. If you're a busy person and you don't have time for something like this, I always just tell people to buy like just some frozen vegetables, like in your freezer section in your store. If you can get like a frozen veggie blend, throw that into whatever you're making. If you're making just like heating up some marinara with like some spaghetti or something, throw some of those vegetables in there. Just throw them in wherever you can. Some like an egg scramble in the morning if that's what you're making. Sometimes the things that are sitting on like the produce shelves in our stores, they're not as fresh as we think they are. Especially here in Hawaii, we get a lot of things shipped. But if you're in somewhere that doesn't have a lot of farmland around you, sometimes it could take days for things to get to you. And a lot of these nutrients I touched on, especially the B vitamins, especially folate, they actually diminish over time. And so the frozen vegetables that you may just be like, ew, that's kind of gross. I don't like frozen peas. But a lot of these are frozen at peak ripeness and freshness. So they actually preserve all of those vitamins in there. And that's just a really simple way to get these vitamins that we're talking about.
I think that's a great idea to educate yourself, try something different. I know at the grocery store near me, they would bring all the elementary and junior high kids through for like a little field trip.
Oh, that's cute.
And then they'd show them these different vegetables and say, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? And they said they were just shocked that most of these kids had no idea what like a rutabaga was, or some of the, or even an avocado.
Yeah.
If they haven't had a chance to eat those, or a date. Who doesn't love dates? I mean, once
so
you have,
good.
to me, that's nature's caramel.
Yes.
So if you were to get one of these boxes or go to and just pick something you don't know what it is. In fact, we had a beautiful fruit the other day. We call it the eyeball fruit. What's the name of it?
Rambutan.
Rambutan.
Yeah, they grow in tropical regions. Sometimes you can see them in your stores, whatever state you're in. I've seen them in Washington. And they're kind of like lychee or lychee. Some people call them that. They're very similar. I think they're the same family. But if you see some like a different fruit or something you're not normally used to, like maybe just buy one and just try it out. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it was absolutely delicious. Of course, it looked like a little sea urchin, then cut open, it looked like an eyeball.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
a
when we
funky fruit.
tasted it, it was absolutely delicious. And so that's been kind of fun to try some new things that you've exposed us to.
Thank you. I love that.
So what other invitations do we have? Do we have any other invitations for them?
Yes. This one sounds very simple, but eat your food with a loved one. Share a meal with someone. One thing that I love so much about food is not just like how it looks, how it tastes, but it's the connection that it brings to people. And we were talking a little bit about mindfulness while eating, but all these like feel good feelings you get when you're sharing a meal with a loved one, it helps us with digesting properly and absorbing nutrients because we're in a calm state. So if you can, just even if it's just with a friend or like you force your kid to eat with you, there's so many benefits to that. And I would definitely suggest doing that.
Well, and we even talked about, all these different cultures that pray over their food, etc. I have a friend that makes amazing food and she chants over the food as she prepares it. And so we know when we eat her food, it's going to be blessed and nutritious only because of the intention that she's put into it. And I think you put a lot of intention into our food.
Absolutely. I always tell people I make intentional food. And even just like, sometimes we're so busy and we have a lot going on during the day. And, when we finally sit down for a meal, our brain is still going about all those things we have to do or things we have to do the next day or things that we're anticipating. So if you can just remove yourself and take a moment. In Japanese culture, they say itadakimasu, which is just acknowledging the food right before you eat and just give thanks and sit there and chew your food, turn the TV off, put your phone away, and just sit there and actually be with the food.
And when you say mindful, I had someone say to me, we were actually eating a lunch. I brought my food and she brought her food and we were eating. She said, just slow down for a second. And she said, put that bite in your mouth and then just savor what that tastes like and be mindful and present with the taste and what you're eating and how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
It took us a lot longer to eat my little snack that I brought, but I had such an appreciation for that food that I would not have had if I had just eaten it. I do the grab and run and just kind of eat, and sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I ate that whole bag and I'm not even aware that I did it. Being more mindful and in the present, and like you said, it's the camaraderie of eating together.
Yes.
And of course all of us are like, oh my gosh, this is so good. We're all talking about the food, and anyway, it just brings up lots of beautiful conversations and healthiness.
Yeah.
So I really want to thank Indigo for taking this time, and so grateful that I get to be a part of some of the retreats where she's our private chef. Of course, you can go to her website. It's Indiyy Cook Club, indiecookclub.com. And oh my gosh, you've got to go on her Instagram. She does such a good job on those. They're not only inspiring, beautiful, but funny too. She's got some funny ones in there. I laughed pretty hard the other day. But this is a very talented, intentional woman that is bringing a lot of health and nutrition, a lot of enjoyment to a lot of people. You would be very honored to have her as your private chef.
Oh, thank you.
So if you are looking for that, make sure that you contact her through her website. She cooks with intention. Obviously, not only is it the nutritional aspect, we've enjoyed the art of it, the camaraderie of it, and you can see what kind of a spirit she is.
Oh.
She's just a bright spirit. We loved having her with us. There is so much that we can do to be able to feed our brain. And these types of processed foods and artificial foods and toxic things, we just need to think about what are we putting in our mouth and what is it doing to our body, to our guts specifically, and to our brain. The brain fog and the inability to be clear and have clarity has a lot to do with our problem solving skills. And really, we need to have our wits about us. But more importantly, we need to have our health about us too. And not only our physical health, but our mental health. And one of the ways that we can do that is to eat nutritionally and intentionally. So I hope this motivated you to go, we're going to try something different. Let's go to the grocery store, find some different things. Let's find some friends. Let's try some things. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I have learned a lot from her. I'm going to go home inspired to try better, to try some new things. And aloha from Hawaii. And as always, we are creators and we create the life that we want. So let's go out there and create amazingness. So thanks, you guys. Tally ho, and we'll see you next week.
Aloha.